Hi everyone, welcome back to another Impact and Influence series. I am beside myself with excitement today. We have the amazing Jane Schumann with us. I've had the honour and privilege of working alongside Jane in a previous brand, and now Jane as a client, and I'm just thrilled, but it's taken me 12 months to get to this point. Jane, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Kyle.
Welcome. We were just talking a little while off the air and saying that you're celebrating your 32nd year in real estate this year.
I am indeed.
Now, Jane, we get people listening to these interviews from all across Australia, and people that have enrolled on our website on Impact and Influence. So for those people that don't know the geographic area in which you operate, could you tell everybody the name of your business and whereabouts in Sydney you actually practice?
Absolutely. Well, we're actually now Rain and Horn Unlimited, and we're unlimited because we go right throughout the eastern suburbs and lower north side. Our office is in Potts Point, which was my request always and part of my contract actually, joining Rain and Horn.
And she's really deflecting that at me, everybody, because we had a previous conversation in another life about Jane wanting to set up an office in Potts Point and doing very, very well down there. So Jane, you and your son Sam
Yes.
have got the office. How long have you had that office where you are?
I think we're coming up early next year. I think February of next year will be 3 years, because we've had two COVIDs. So we opened for COVID, closed for COVID, reopened, and so yeah, it must be 3 years in February.
And it's punching through very, very well. I noticed at the last awards night, you guys absolutely smashed it out of the park. Great young team, good energy there. I really want to share your backstory today. So life before real estate, and then we'll obviously talk about your hugely successful career that you've had. So Jane, if you could take us back, what did life look like before real estate?
Oh, I wish I could remember, Kyle's. Well, life before real estate, I left school, I was in the theatre, I lived in Europe after that for a good deal of my 20s in Greece and Italy. I came back and thought, oh, I suppose I really have to grow up and get a proper job, which I then was National Publicity Manager for Polygram Records. And I was there for the good days of rock and roll. They were great fun days. Being a publicity manager was outstanding. Probably prepared me pretty well actually for real estate. And then I had the boys, had a bit of time off, and then got into real estate.
I would imagine a role like that, you met some big personalities as well, and people from all walks of life, and it did prepare you very, very well for the industry. Any good stories without mentioning any names that get you in trouble from your publicity days?
There were lots of fabulous stories, but I guess I learned a really good lesson there, which was so many people in the actual company thought they were more important than the stars. And so that teaches you a lot, you know, when you have clients and the stars were our clients, you're not actually more important than them, and you need to always remember that. So look, there were lots of gorgeous stories, but I don't think I'll repeat them.
And that's what I love about you, Jado. You're just the vault. Look, one thing when working alongside you that I noticed was the repeat referral that you have with your customers, and you really do have a very special way with your dialogue and what you do from a client experience point of view. What do you say to new entry comers coming into the market around client experience and relationship management?
Well, I think you really have to be confidential. That is number one. There's no room for gossip. There's no room for name dropping, which a lot of people do in order to boost themselves rather than for it to have any other real meaning, to be honest. But anybody coming into the workforce of real estate now, I would say always have the right intent and never, ever gossip.
Incredibly important in all marketplaces. And Jane, you have a wonderful ability. If anyone's never seen Jane perform or act on behalf of her clients on an auction floor, then next time she's got an auction and you don't have listings, please go and watch it, because to see Jane in the auction room is a master of her craft. But Jane, what are the things that you've learned over the years, and what are some of the techniques and disciplines that you would say to evolving auction agents in industry?
Look, I think with regard to the auction process, I'm a big believer in the auction process, there's no doubt, and it is really only a process. So it hasn't really changed much from when we started. You know, you sell before, at or after auction. In markets like now, it can be after auction, obviously, I think you just need a resilience to get through it. On the auction floor, I've always found that if you have always told your buyers the truth, you can go up and look them in the eye and say to them, have I ever told you anything different? And mostly, you know, I haven't. So if we're looking for a particular price, we ask for it. And more often than not, buyers are happy to give it to you because they have always heard what we were looking for.
And Jane, how do you best prepare your vendors for auction, or what's actually key for you going into an auction scenario with your clients?
Well, I think it changes, Kyles. At the moment, I think we prepare them for, I suppose, goodness me, you know, it's not highly competitive out there. So you do really need to know what you're doing. We've gone into the auction room for many years outside of the slight, you know, boosted times without much competition. So it's just preparing them for that, for them to be as flexible as possible, not necessarily with regard to price either. It's just being flexible to what's happening, hearing what they need and seeing if we can assist.
I think, Jane, something that we're seeing out there a lot is with the emergence of these super teams and different people obviously having different functionality and people being in their swim lane based on their strength. And one of your greatest strengths that I've observed over the years is leadership. What do you think that leadership means in industry, whether you're the owner of a business or whether or not you're leading a sales team where you are responsible for your pack?
Well, I think it's the old thing. You really have to do what you say you're going to do. I think if you're leading a team or leading an office, you really have to make sure that you do what your expectations are of others. It's the old thing, you know, fish stinks from the head down. And if you have somebody at the top who really doesn't have those beliefs or just expect somebody else to do it and doesn't do it themselves, I just can't see how that works.
Jane, 32 years in industry, you know, there's not many people that have continued to be at the top of the game for that period of time. And actually probably the area that you're in the eastern suburbs has probably got, you know, there's names that come to mind, you know, particularly Craig Ponte, he's been in the media a lot lately. And, you know, similar sort of time he's been in the industry. Obviously you guys do the right thing. You do the right thing by your customer. What have you seen really change, and where do you think the industry potentially needs to be careful emerging moving forward?
I guess the industry's changed because of the number of people in the industry. So there's not always a way of controlling that. And we see that happening at the moment with buyer's agents. All of a sudden they're multiplying all over the place.
There's definitely a lot around.
Oh my goodness, yes, as do agents and agencies, people with very little experience. And I think it always comes down to what their intent is. Getting into real estate has always been, I've felt, young people thinking they're just in it for $1. And if you like that, that certainly will come across, and very few of them will remain. How have I seen it change? Don't think it has changed enormously. It just gets bigger. I think in tough markets, the uglier side of agents come out. And we're in one of those markets just at the moment. So I just think possibly it hasn't changed enough. And we're probably saying and doing the same things as we did about 30 years ago, to be honest.
I think it's interesting, Jane, you always talk about the intent, which I love. So, you know, anyone that's listening, particularly if you're emerging talent or you're new into industry, is being very clear about the intent that you're radiating, but also the intent when you call people, and not being that churn and burn agent, and think about what the value proposition is for the consumer on the other end of the phone, and how you're going to leave a memorable moment after you speak with them. Jane, you've had a lot of new young talent in your new office where you are, and you've been very good at building that talent. I'm thinking particularly of you know, Prue, that works alongside you, such an amazing young lady and got a huge future.
Absolutely.
What do you think are some of the most important elements in developing young talent in industry in 2022?
I think for young talent, I think they have to respect themselves. Once they respect themselves, they do respect others. Prue and I have this conversation though all the time. She's 24 years old.
Amazing.
You know, we're grooming Prue to be as fabulous as she can possibly be. She's our office manager, our business manager at the moment. And I think that she's as amazed as I am how few people have manners. It's always one of the things that I find astounding, you know, both towards us, and often we hear from the industry towards buyers and owners. But I think, look, we can only lead by example in the big scheme of things. We can sit and, you know, yeah, but if we're not doing it ourselves, there is no leadership. You know, I think I like to have people around me who absorb. That's one of the greatest things of working with Sam. He's just like a sponge. He just happens to be a young male version of me, really. Perfect, really.
Oh, terrified. No,
absolutely. Such a sweet boy, but terrified. But I think that that is the most important thing for me, Kyle. So, you know, is if you lead well and your expectations of your colleagues are the same as the expectations of yourself, I don't think we can ask for more than that in leadership.
I think that's a really good point, actually. And you're very big on coachable moments. And I know that you have an ethos that every time you open your mouth or you behave a certain way, that it's a coaching moment. And I think that's a real takeaway for anyone listening today. I do know that you've got a plan for Prue, and she sort of knows where she's heading. So I think that's very, very, very important. You've got a very solid onboarding program there now that you've been working on very hard for the last 12 months. When people come in, you're setting that expectation, their KPI, there's performance management.
Training
reward.
Sorry?
The reward, I think. You guys do a lot together socially as well. How important is that for the...
I think we forget though. I think we all forget to reward ourselves. You know, I think that so many things that we do, the amount of time it takes, the disappointment and the joy of all of these transactions, I don't think we reward ourselves enough. Certainly we look to and we say we will, but then we're on to the next one. We've always said the same in every company I've been in. You know, we mean to, and just reward ourselves, let alone everybody else. But I think that we see each other. I think they're little things. I think the most important thing is that everybody should feel that they're valued. I always say to Sam, we must value the ones we have. You know, the churn and burn of getting people in because there's a space that we need filled, we just do not behave like that. We have, if they don't fit, it's a pointless exercise for us. But the reward is, I guess, making sure that we remain together, making sure that they feel that they can put their hand up when something is not working for them. We do ask our colleagues to please let us know if there's something that you need, that you want, rather than all of, you know, them sitting around and being disgruntled, which happens in bigger companies. You know, blah, blah, always complaining, no room for it.
think that accessibility and that feedback, I know that you've always been very open with that, and Jane's pretty black and white, which I love. We're two Capricorns. So, you know, can I have your permission to give feedback, but also receive it? It's incredibly important. But
you're so much more succinct than I am, Kyles. I waffle on. Thank God you bring it all back on track.
Depends on the day, Jane. Depends on the day. But I'd like everyone that's listening to sort of take away from that it's far easier to retain than it is to recruit. So getting that feedback this time of year from your team about what you're doing right, what you're not doing right, what you need to do more of, what you need to do less of is incredibly important. Okay, now for the fun stuff, Jane. Rapid fire. Would you do anything differently that you've done in your life or career in real estate?
Look, I think there's always room for something that you would do slightly differently. You know, I can look back and maybe think I should have moved on to something else more quickly than I did, etc. But not a great deal. You know, I don't think there's much time to regret stuff. There's nothing we can do about it anyway. I'm a big believer in every single situation you learn something, and I don't look back a lot. And I've made sure I don't look back a lot, because if you can look back and learn, that's one thing, but just looking back, we can't change it.
No revision mirror for you, Miss Jane. I love it.
Oh, no.
Who's been your greatest mentor in the real estate industry, and what should someone look for in a mentor?
No, I really have thought about that. When I started, I think that Gerald, my husband, had always been in sales and creating businesses and etc. So he was a massive influence on sales behaviour, I guess, if you want to term it that. I have very much my own spin on things, as you would well know, Kyles. But I'd say that he has been my greatest mentor. But then it was a truly fabulous time when I was at Dow Jones with Gary. You know, we had those marvellous years together. You know, we had no ego, you know. We were top agents, really, and then we formed a relationship that neither of us cared. Who brought the property in, who got it out? We were happy. Everything was always congenial and fabulous and etc. No issues with regard to commissions and whatever. And so that was a big lesson for me in business. You know, he was an amazing agent who did things very differently to me, but I always wanted to learn, and vice versa. He always wanted to learn. So we were a great combo. And then when Gary left, sounds a bit of a suck up here, but I really only had you and Rob at that time. And that was also fantastic, because you were very different. You were a lot younger. You looked at things differently. Even though you've been in the industry so long, Kyles, you evolved with the industry, and a lot of people don't. And I think that's really important. Surround yourself with people who are evolving. That's a really good thing to do. Having young people around is so much better than having people who are just doing the same old, and you're not learning anything.
It's actually really good fit, and thank you for that. It was love. I love working with you, and I learned heaps and continue to learn heaps. But I think that is interesting about you say with the partnership. We're getting a lot of requests at the moment for people to merge. No surprises there in changing market and getting efficiencies and scale. And you know, the key thing I say is it a fit? Are you a good yin and yang, or are you clear in your swim lane? Importantly, do you trust? And that was one thing I could say about you and Gary, is you just had unbreakable trust that the other person was going to do the right thing. And I think probably about Gary and Phil down at Gary Pier as well, they're a bit similar. Yes. So what I'd say to anyone thinking about going to a partnership is just make sure that it's like a marriage, right? Make sure that trust is absolutely there and you've got each other's back.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, allowing each other to be who they are. You know, it's like any marriage. I mean, obviously there are bits and pieces that you don't like. I mean, I've trained my husband very well to do everything the way I like it. So I've been very lucky. And, But I just think, you know, we all do things differently. But if you just have to have that same ethic, I mean, I know that words like trust and ethic and whatever are words that usually don't go with real estate. And we all try and avoid it because of the old cliche. But I really do believe that that's absolutely essential. And certainly with Gary and I, and with you and Rob, the trust was always there. And now I'm lucky enough, of course, to have Sam, and, you know, a fine young leader who really does know how to behave and how to treat people well.
Jano, legacy,
Yes.
what do you want to be remembered for? Or what is one of your favourite sayings that you'd like to, because you've got a few and they're crackers, that you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
Well, one of them is that it's early days. I have been known for that expression for many years, right up until 6 o'clock on auction night. It's early days. And the deal is never done or over until it is. That's it.
Do you know what? I'm not going to let you finish there, because I tell you, again, your auction craftsmanship is unbelievable. I was talking to Gavin Croft the other day, who's the head auctioneer of Ray White in Queensland.
Yeah, I love that.
Crofty and I still talk about you on the auction floor and making people bid against themselves. And the old saying is you'd always want to sell through Jane Schumann, but you'd never want to buy through her.
Thanks, Carls. I think
it's a wonderful thing to be. I think it's a wonderful thing to be known that you're going to get every last cent for your client and you always act in the best interest. But funny how your buyers become your future vendors, Jane.
That's exactly right. And so many of them have become my friends.
Absolutely.
You know, that is our job. You know, I think if we remember our job and if we do business really well, business should be done well. And, you know, even though people seem to forget that real estate's a business, so when you're dealing with your owners and the buyers, it's business transactions as if we were sitting around a boardroom table, then I think everything then comes together and people are quite happy. They'll give you everything that's in their pocket if they can.
And one thing to finish on, prospecting. I can remember Jane saying to me one day, oh, I don't prospect, Carl. So I'm like, well, you don't have to, Jane. No, they just keep coming back. And I think that's something I'd love to leave everybody with today. If you do the right thing by your customer,
Yes.
and you do the relationship and become truly that trusted advisor, you'll have a stellar career. Jane, congratulations on 32 years. You're an absolute industry icon, and we thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks, Carl.